I'm here on behalf of the European Cloud Alliance. We're a industry group that brings together cloud service providers, developers, and software vendors to promote the use of the cloud through things like best practice sharing and ensuring that a policy environment favorable to cloud usage evolves and exists in Europe. I encourage you, in the interest of time, simply to go to our website, europeancloudalliance.com, which sets forth what we're up to. And I would also encourage you to have a look at our Cloud Trends Report, which was recently put up on the website. It identifies about 10 or 12 areas that we think are critical in the year ahead with respect to the development of the cloud in Europe. And among them is the topic that I'm here to talk about today, which is the IP issues. I'm going to skip over very quickly the introductory slides. This is something that I would typically go through in a presentation, but we've heard it in one way or another already today, and that's this so-called fourth industrial revolution, the cloud providing all sorts of advances in all sorts of industries of critical importance to people. Connected cars, an example. Again, we just heard about that, so I won't go into the detailed explanation of that, but just to say that as the statistics put up on the slide say, that the number of sensors, microprocessors, signals, and so forth, and the amount of data involved with automotive transportation is incredible these days. And as we move into the world of autonomous vehicles, it's only going to get that much more complex and that much more critical to have cloud capacity to handle all of that data. We have massive growth in cloud spend. I think the interesting figure is to the right. 60% of computing power will be in the public cloud by 2025, which is just really incredible, thinking that 10 years ago, a cloud was what's pouring out rain on you outside, and now it's just such an important part of our technology and our lives. Now, I'm here today principally to kind of raise an issue that I think should serve as a warning for companies working in the cloud. Not something to keep you away from working in the cloud, just something that traditional companies, manufacturing concerns, need to take into account as they increasingly digitalize their manufacturing processes. Every industrial revolution has led to intellectual property disputes, and you see some examples there. The smartphone wars are going on now, but it goes back as far as the telephone and a lengthy patent war there. And what is happening now is that customers, and when I say customers, it's the customers of the cloud service providers, really the people that are part of my organization, are looking to the cloud service providers to help them manage their IP risks, not just their privacy risks, not just their security risks, but also their IP risks. So what do I mean? What happens is we have the development, and we all, I guess, commonly hear the term patent trolls, if you will, okay? And I'll use the more technical term because patent trolls is sort of sounds like a Donald Trumpian kind of phrase, and it could be misinterpreted by people. Essentially, they are known as patent assertion entities or non-practicing entities. Definitions on the bottom there. They're organization whose aim is to acquire patents and capture revenues from them without actually using them in a manufacturing process. Okay, and you can see the extent to which that is already happening with respect to the cloud. There's been a 22% rise in cloud-based litigation in the United States over the last 5 years, and during the same period, the so-called non-practicing entities have increased their acquisition of cloud-related patents by 35%. Now, you might say the U.S. is a little bit litigation crazy. I'm an American, I'm a lawyer, and yes, it is. Okay, but that doesn't mean that European concerns are immune from what's happening across the pond. It's sort of a leading edge of the situation, if you will. And they tend to be going after, the MPEs tend to go after the smaller players because those are the players that will settle quickly with them rather than going to extensive litigation the way a larger concern might be willing to take them on. So the small players then have to say, what is it we can do to address this IP risk? Well, traditionally, you know, get legislation, which might have damage caps and so forth, argue through the courts, get court decisions, buy insurance, shift the risk through contracts, develop your own patent portfolios, obtain licenses to third parties. These are all good ways to do it, but it's awfully hard for a small concern to be engaged in all of this all of the time. And so what is happening is we're seeing an industry-led private ordering program, where the essentially the platform providers or others who work with the smaller companies put together programs to help the small concerns manage their IP risks. And what they do is they put together an IP risk mitigation strategy in the cloud. So if you're a company who wants to use cloud services, they go to the provider and they say, what are the protection provisions that you can offer me against third-party claims? This would be IP indemnification. Which of my products and services would be protected? Are there limitations on liability? And are you protecting open source? Many cloud services are built on top of open source, and you want to make sure that those things are protected. Of course, the smaller companies can develop their own patent portfolios, and that's all good, but having this other layer of security or indemnification, if you will get them across the finish line in terms of litigation. There are many examples of programs out there. These are just a few. AST is a nonprofit cooperative. That's the Allied Security Trust. They help clients analyze patent purchase opportunities and complete defensive patent acquisition for them. The Open Invention Network is a defensive patent pool and community of patent non-aggression in the open source environment. And Microsoft Azure is sort of a bigger, more complex program, just as you would expect from a company like Microsoft and its Azure platform. They have two key benefits. They offer uncapped indemnification to their customers and cover open source software. And they also have what's called a patent pick program, which fills the gap between their IP-rich environment and the IP-poor companies that work with them. And they make patents available to the smaller companies as needed to defend themselves in litigation. I'm not discussing relative merits of any of these, and there are many more. Again, my point is to say that there is a risk out there for companies. Companies need to be aware of it, and as they are looking to to increasingly digitalize their operations, they should keep them in mind, and they should talk about it with those other groups, including their platform service providers, to figure out how it can best be mitigated and managed. That's it. Thank you.